Malibu, California, and when I do these videos, they're raw, they're live, they're unedited, and there's helicopters and there's planes or whatever, and you know what? That's life. And some people, everything has to be pristine in order for them to do something, and therefore they never do anything, because life is not pristine. So if you're waiting for the pristine moment to begin doing what you believe called to do, that you're going to end up being very old and decaying before that pristine moment comes, because life is not a series of pristine moments. Life is a series of chaos in which you have to learn how to manage the chaos and triumph and navigate through the chaos in order to accomplish your goals. I want to talk about accomplishing goals and breakthrough, and I'm Paul McGuire, but not from the perspective that used to be the predominant message we heard, at least when I was a kid or young man starting out. The basic principle back then that you heard constantly was PMA, positive mental attitude, and motivational psychology, and those things have a limited degree of benefit. But you see, as a culture, the United States of America or Europe, wherever you are, we've sailed into stormy weather, and there are things that we're having to deal with that you're just not going to wish away with positive thinking or psychological humanistic motivation, because you see the fallacy of that is you're trying to build your life on the foundation of human energy and human strength. Now, America in many respects is probably one of the greatest nations the world has ever seen. In terms of America, it's a fact, created the most prosperous middle class. That means it provided the greatest standard of living for the largest number of people in the history of mankind. Now, some people who have been indoctrinated in socialism think that's a bad thing. Well, if you think that's a bad thing, take a little trip to Cuba or the former Soviet Union or China or the other communist nations, and you will discover that there really isn't a middle class. There's an elite that has all the wealth and controls all the power, and then there are the slave-like masses. And when you begin to see that in Marxist countries, you begin to really appreciate the fact that America, because of its Constitution and Bill of Rights, you know, we've been given inalienable rights. That means your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness has not been given to you by any government. It was given to you by God, who created you. And so, based on that thinking, a middle class was legally empowered to pursue entrepreneurship, to start their own businesses, etc., etc. And that initiative and that competition, and competition can be a very good thing, produce the greatest prosperity for the greatest number of people in the history of the human race. That's why I can talk to you and millions of people around the world, because of the technologies that were released from the platform of the United States of America and its Constitution and its Bill of Rights. Now, you can want to build and dream and create, and these are important things, because God is the creator, capital C, and you're the creature created by God, and God created you to create. So people are motivated and energized and come alive when they're given the opportunity to create, whether it's making cookies, whether it's painting homes, whether it's coming up with an idea to deliver mail more efficiently, whether it's making a feature film, whether it's feeding the poor, or starting a ministry, or medicine, or nutrition. I mean, the spectrum of human activities is endless. So you certainly don't want a system which imposes burdensome regulations upon you, so it stifles the God-given creative power that He has placed inside of every man and every woman. Now, in my DVD series, which you can get at paulmcguire.org, I talk about a principle, and I believe this principle very strongly, and it's based on excuse me, factual evidence. I believe the whole idea of shortages, scarcity, we're running out of energy, we're running out of fuel, we're running out of food. I believe that that is a pervasive mythology. In other words, it's a lie. It's a fallacy. It's a wet blanket of dark consciousness thrown upon the human race that will blind you as the individual from the God-given possibilities that God has put before you. You see, there is no scarcity of food on planet Earth. There is no energy shortage. All of these things are mythologies deliberately created by propaganda in order to maneuver and control and manipulate people into socioeconomic and political systems that benefit in an invisible hierarchy where you work as a slave for somebody else's benefit. There's no energy shortage. There never has been an energy shortage. I'm talking to you from the cliffs of Malibu. The sun is over there. We have enough sunshine in the western United States to power just about everything if we were to convert to solar panels. But you see, the conversion to solar panels is resisted, both legally and in other ways, by the energy companies. They're doing everything they possibly can to block it. Why? Because they want a monopoly on energy. They want a culture and a society dependent upon gasoline and oil, because that's where they make their money from. And when you have a society that is completely dependent upon one or two energy sources, you have the price of energy go very high. But you see, there's an entire spectrum of alternative energy sources. Solar. You say, well, nuclear reactors are bad. Well, nuclear reactors, if all you're looking at is at the tsunami that destroyed the nuclear reactors in Japan, which was a terrible, terrible tragedy, but that's not the norm in terms of nuclear reactors. Nuclear reactors, when built properly, with the proper safety margins, are highly efficient means of delivering enormous amounts of power. And that's just the beginning of the alternative sources of energy, wind farms, and so forth. So we don't need to be reliant on oil. Number two is we certainly don't need to be reliant on Middle Eastern oil. We have more oil in a couple of islands that used to be part of the United States of America until they were given away. There's more oil in those little islands than there is in all of Saudi Arabia. A partner of the Paul McGuire E-Blast intelligence report works up there, flew over the islands, sent me photographs of the islands along with maps, and explained to me the enormous oil reserves that are in the northern area of Alaska. Now, we don't have to go to the Middle East to get it. It's right there. You see, so we have access to energy. And so there's no reason for this arbitrary monopoly on energy. The same thing with food. We talk about food shortages. Well, the food shortages are basically man-made and created. When you have huge, giant corporations, which, for example, and I believe this is a very evil thing, and I think it's something that displeases the personal living God of the universe. They they produce genetically modified organisms which destroy and break down the immune system, by the way. And then they sell it at the highest possible price. We're going to get more into that. I'm Paul McGuire. You can get information and power at paulmcguire.org.